If you're enjoying haunted UK fiction, please consider supporting the show on Patreon or Ko-fi. Simply search for Haunted UK Podcast. Tim's breath caught. He pushed himself upright, heart hammering. Slowly, as if drawn, he reached out a hand. He hesitated and looked around the room, searching for an alternate explanation. There was nothing. When he looked back at the wall, the shadow had changed. It was no longer shapeless. It had a face. Hello and welcome, dear listeners, to Haunted UK Fiction, a sister podcast to The Haunted UK, which features original flash fiction, short stories, and novellas with paranormal themes. All stories you will hear were written by a collection of talented writers, authors, and storytellers, both independent and professional. In today's episode, we'll be reading The Thing in the Wall, which was sent in to us by Alec Rowan. Alec writes across sci-fi, horror, and fantasy, stories shaped by King and Kuntz, but also by the ruined wastelands of Fallout, the dread of Silent Hill, and the survival horror of Resident Evil. He's drawn to haunted cities, forgotten technology, and the fragile hope that survives when the world turns dark. Recent works include Witchfire Awakens and Ashes of the Damned. He's currently working on the Paladin's Vow trilogy, starting with Below the Surface, a dark blend of fantasy and sci-fi where missing orcs, corporate secrets, and magic experiments collide. Get comfortable. Grab a little something to sip on. Perhaps cuddle up under a blanket to help offset the chills coming your way. And let's dive into the story. "What do you think?" Dad asked. The room smelled strange, like glue and new carpet. The open window did little to help. The scent clung in Tim's nose, heavy and chemical. He didn't mind, though. Trains were everywhere. They rolled across the wallpaper, raced along the bedspread, even peeked out from the curtains. Each engine was caught in a different moment, steaming, whistling, waiting at a station, loading coal. And the same scenes repeated again and again until the whole room seemed alive with them. "Looks good, right?" Dad said again. Tim's chest swelled so full he thought it might burst. He grinned up at Dad and nodded hard. He sniffed and wrinkled his nose. "What's that smell?" "Just the wallpaper. Or maybe the new carpet. It'll fade in a few days." Tim bounced onto the bed. The mattress squeaked under him. "Easy," Dad laughed, but Tim knew that laugh. It meant keep going. He giggled and jumped higher. The bed stuck out in the middle of the room, with a little table on each side like guards at their posts. His bookshelf groaned with toys. Trains on tracks, trains in stations. Even dinosaurs squeezed between them. His soldiers and cars stood neatly in rows, as if waiting for their journeys. It was all his. "Come on, you. Let's get you fed." Tim slid down and grabbed Dad's hand. "When's Mum home?" Dad's smile softened. "She's working nights this week, but you'll see her in the morning." Tim's shoulders sagged. His hair brushed his cheeks as he stared at the floor. "Hey," Dad said quickly. "Guys' night? Food and a film?" Tim's frown flipped. "Yes." Later, after dinner and superheroes, Dad tucked him in. The trains on the wall seemed to watch over him as the blanket was pulled snug. "Dad," Tim called as he turned to leave. "Don't forget the light." The dark didn't scare him. Not really. But the little glow from the landing made the trains look alive, wheels turning in secret, and he liked that. "Good night, champ," Dad said softly. Tim listened to his footsteps creak down the stairs. A door closed, then the faint hum of the television began. He pulled the blanket up, snug as a bug, and yawned. They'd built Lego cars after the film. He had raced his against Dad's and won. Twice. His eyes were drifting shut when he rolled onto his side. That was when he sensed something shift. His lids snapped open. Dreaming? Maybe. He looked at the wallpaper. Trains everywhere, each caught in a different place. One steamed out of a tunnel, one waited at a station, Wait. Tim sat up. Something was wrong. One train was missing. In its place, a shadowy shape clung to the wall. For a heartbeat, it pulsed there, wrong and oily. He blinked and rubbed his eyes. The shadow blurred, then vanished, replaced by the familiar blue train. Silly. Just tired. He curled into the blanket and slipped away to sleep. By morning, the blur was forgotten. He flung himself into his mother's arms, chattering all through breakfast, and ran off to school. That evening, Dad made dinner. His chips were the best, even if the sausages were a little blackened. They spent the night drawing. Tim filled page after page with trains, neat lines and bold colours. The blue one was his favourite. "Okay, bud," Dad said, glancing at his watch. "Time for bed." Soon Tim was in his pyjamas, tucked under the blanket once more. "Dad!" James paused in the doorway. "The light?" Tim said. "Sleep tight. Mind the bedbugs don't bite." Tim frowned. He didn't know what that meant, but it didn't matter. His eyes grew heavy. A sound woke him. Scratching. Soft at first, then sharper. He blinked. The landing light remained on, and the TV still murmured faintly from downstairs. That made him feel better, knowing Dad was still awake. The sound came again. His eyes tracked to the wallpaper. Same place. Same train. Only the train wasn't there. The shadow was back. Larger this time. It stretched across the wall, bleeding into the others, consuming them. Tim's breath caught. He pushed himself upright, heart hammering. Slowly, as if drawn, he reached out a hand. He hesitated and looked around the room, searching for an alternate explanation. There was nothing. When he looked back at the wall, the shadow had changed. It was no longer shapeless. It had a face. Pale, smiling, too wide. Its mouth split open, lips red as blood, teeth larger than they had any right to be. Wild hair burning red against the sickly wall, the eyes, sharp, green, crazed, snapped straight to Tim's outstretched hand. He screamed. Dad thundered up the stairs, each footfall shaking the floorboards. The door flew wide, and the ceiling light seared Tim's eyes. "Tim?" Dad's voice, loud, urgent. "Dad, there's a monster on the wall, right there." He pointed with a shaking hand, but the face was gone. His blue train, back in its place. "It's just a dream," Dad said gently. "It can't hurt you." "No," Tim sobbed. "It was there." James sat on the bed, pulled him close. "It's all right, son. I get scared too sometimes. I'll stay here with you. Try to sleep." Tim trembled, but Dad's presence was a shield. If Dad was here, nothing could get him. He lay down reluctantly. Dad sat on the floor beside him, holding his hand. "There's no such thing as ghosts, right?" Tim whispered. "No, bud." Dad stroked his hair. "Now sleep." At some point, Tim drifted off. A sound dragged him back. Clack. The noise of 2 blocks bashed together. Tim froze. His blanket was pulled tight under his chin. He listened. Clack. He peeked out. The wall looked normal. No shadow, no face. His father had been right. Relief washed over him. Then he realized his dad was no longer on the floor beside him. He glanced at the door. The light from the landing was off. From the next room came the slow, steady rasp of snoring. His dad was asleep. That helped. At least he was close. Clack. The wall shifted. The ceiling peeled down, the floor pushed up. A row of enormous teeth emerged. 2 lips, dark and swollen, unfurled across the plaster, stretching into a terrible smile. The eyes appeared next, green and feverish, drilling into him. The trains dissolved into white rot, their carriages replaced by skin stretched too tight. Tim tried to scream, but only a croak came. The face paused, bearing down at him. It gnashes its teeth, making that awful clacking noise. Without a word, the face pressed forward, bulging into the room, stretching the wall. That smile reached for him. The teeth clamped and unclamped in hunger, gnashing in anticipation. The scream burst out of him at last. James woke with a start. That noise! Tim! He tore across the landing, slammed the switch. Light flooded the room. Tim sat up in bed, staring. "Everything okay, bud?" James asked. Tim looked up at him and smiled. A wild, unnatural smile. "Sure," Tim said softly. "Did you have a bad dream?" That brings us to the end of this episode. We truly hope you enjoyed this terrifying, nightmare-esque tale. If you'd like to hear more from Alec Rowan, you can find more information about him on his website and social media. Links are in the show's notes. If you have an original story that would send a chill down our spines and you would like to submit it for review, simply send it in to hauntedukfiction@hotmail.com. That's hauntedukfiction@hotmail.com. Until next time, stay safe and take care.